Welcome, everyone. Today we step into a story that blends mystery, nature, and the power of language. Along the coast, a strange encounter sparks suspense and curiosity, with the woman in the water symbolizing both fear and fascination. Through the themes of waves, tides, and the unknown, the story reveals a depth that lingers. Along the way, you'll discover rich British English vocabulary designed for B2, C1 learners, supported by subtitles for listening and reading practice. And with the Storytime format, learning becomes engaging, memorable, and alive. Let's begin this journey together into language and imagination. Have you ever found yourself standing by the edge of the sea, staring out into the horizon, and feeling as if the waves were whispering secrets you couldn't quite understand? That is the feeling at the heart of this story. The coast is not just a place where land meets water. It is a border between what we know and what we can't fully explain. When we walk along the shoreline, there is always the possibility that something unexpected might appear. And in this story, that sense of the unknown takes shape through a mysterious encounter. The soft rush of the tide, the glimmer of moonlight on the water, and the sudden presence of a figure in the waves all combine to create an atmosphere thick with suspense and curiosity. It is the kind of moment where every sound feels sharper, every movement seems significant, and your imagination begins to race ahead, trying to make sense of what you are seeing. What makes this encounter so compelling is not only the surprise of it, but also the questions it raises. Who is this woman, and why is she there? Is she a vision, a memory, or something more real and tangible? The coast becomes more than just a setting. It becomes a stage where fear and wonder can exist side by side. As the waves swirl and crash, they seem to mirror the emotions rising within, leaving you unsure whether to step closer or retreat. Suspense builds because the moment is never fully explained, and that is exactly what holds our attention. We are drawn into the uncertainty, compelled to keep listening, hoping to uncover the truth. For learners of English, this type of storytelling is powerful because it engages both the mind and the imagination. The mystery keeps you focused, while the descriptive language helps you build new vocabulary and strengthen your listening skills. Each phrase carries not only meaning but also feeling, allowing you to connect emotionally with the scene. And as the story unfolds, you begin to realize that the encounter is not just about the woman in the water. It is about how we respond when faced with the unknown, about the way curiosity can pull us forward, even when fear whispers for us to turn away. This is the beginning of a journey into suspense, and it invites you to step into the waves of language and discovery. When we think about the power of stories, it is often the themes that stay with us long after the final words are spoken. In this story, the themes of nature, water, and the unknown work together to add a deep and lasting impression. Nature itself is not a silent background here. It is alive, breathing, and shaping every moment. The coast, with its shifting tides and restless winds, reminds us that we are small in comparison to the vastness of the natural world. Each wave that rolls in carries both beauty and unpredictability, just as life itself often does. Water becomes more than a physical element. It becomes a character of its own, full of mystery, strength, and hidden meaning. The presence of water in this story does more than set the scene. It represents movement, change, and uncertainty. Standing by the ocean, you are aware that beneath the surface lies an entire world you cannot see. This is what makes the story so compelling. Water becomes a symbol of the unknown, of secrets waiting to be uncovered, of truths that may never fully reveal themselves. It is no coincidence that the mysterious encounter happens here, where the natural world meets the mysteries of human imagination. The sea reflects both our deepest fears and our strongest curiosities. As the tale unfolds, the connection between nature and the unknown builds a tension that is both unsettling and captivating. The rustling of the wind, the shifting sands, the sound of waves crashing against rocks. All these natural details are woven into the atmosphere of the story, drawing us closer to the experience. They remind us that we are part of a larger, untamed world, one that is capable of holding secrets far beyond our understanding. At the same time, these elements challenge us to listen more carefully, to observe more closely, and to open ourselves to the possibility that the natural world holds answers we have not yet imagined. Through these themes, the story becomes more than just a sequence of events. It becomes a reflection of how we experience life itself, surrounded by nature's beauty, tested by its unpredictability, and forever intrigued by the mysteries it hides. And it is in this meeting point, between what we see and what we cannot explain, that the true depth of the story lies. The appearance of the woman in the water is not only striking, but also layered with meaning, because she becomes more than just a figure in the story. She becomes a powerful symbol. She carries with her the essence of mystery, fear, and fascination, three emotions that often exist together when we encounter the unknown. Mystery surrounds her presence as she emerges from the waves without explanation. She does not speak, yet her silence speaks volumes. The uncertainty of who she is and why she is there fuels the imagination, making her an enigma that demands attention. This sense of mystery pulls us forward, compelling us to keep watching, to keep listening, hoping for a glimpse of truth hidden beneath the surface. Alongside this mystery comes the sharp edge of fear. The sea itself can already stir feelings of unease, its vastness, its unpredictability, its endless depth. Now imagine a solitary figure appearing within it, half revealed, half hidden, caught between the real and the unreal. There is a natural instinct to step back, to question whether approaching is safe, whether the woman is a source of danger or a warning of something greater. That fear is not just about her, it is about what she represents. She embodies the unknown, and the unknown always carries with it a shadow of fear. Yet, curiously, fear is not the only response she evokes. There is also fascination. The sight of her shimmering against the backdrop of the waves creates a sense of beauty and wonder that cannot be ignored. Even in uncertainty, there is something magnetic about her presence, something that stirs admiration and a desire to understand. This mixture of fear and fascination is what makes her unforgettable, because it mirrors the way humans often respond to things we cannot fully explain. We are cautious, yes, but we are also drawn in, unable to look away. The woman in the water, then, is not simply part of the story's setting. She is its living symbol. She represents the pull of the mysterious, the chill of fear, and the spark of fascination that together keep us listening and keep us learning. It is through her that the story reminds us how powerful an encounter with the unknown can truly be. One of the strongest elements of this story is the way it uses rich British English vocabulary that is perfectly suited for learners at the B2, C1 level. The language is not overly simple, nor is it so advanced that it becomes overwhelming. Instead, it sits in that sweet spot where learners can stretch their understanding, encounter new words, and connect them naturally to the context of the story. Words like driftwood, shimmer, and horizon immediately place the listener by the sea, creating a vivid picture while also offering terms that can be easily remembered and applied in real life. These are words that bring scenes to life, allowing learners to not only understand the story, but also feel it. The story also makes use of more complex expressions that challenge learners to think beyond basic communication. Phrases such as to be taken aback or to be intrigued add depth, giving listeners the chance to hear how emotion and reaction can be described in natural British English. They are not phrases that you encounter every day in a textbook, yet they appear often in real conversations, literature, and media. By hearing them in context, learners absorb their meaning in a way that feels natural and memorable. Another strength of the vocabulary is how it blends descriptive and emotional language. Terms like mesmerizing or remnants do more than just describe. They evoke feelings and spark the imagination. This combination makes the story more engaging, but it also ensures that learners are practicing the kind of English that helps them express subtle ideas and emotions. At this level, it is no longer enough to simply say something is beautiful or scary. Learners need richer words that carry nuance, and this story provides them. What makes the experience even more valuable is that the vocabulary is reinforced by subtitles. Learners can listen, read along, and then reflect on how the words are used. This dual exposure strengthens both listening and reading skills, while also helping with pronunciation and memory. Each word becomes part of a larger picture, not just a list to be memorized, but a living part of the narrative. Through its carefully chosen vocabulary, the story becomes more than entertainment. It becomes a language lesson in itself, guiding learners toward more expressive, confident, and natural English. One of the most effective ways to build language skills is by combining listening and reading, and that is exactly what makes this story so valuable. Listening alone is powerful, but sometimes the sound of new vocabulary or unfamiliar phrases can move too quickly, leaving the learner unsure. Reading on its own can be helpful, but without hearing how the words flow in natural speech, it can feel flat and disconnected. When both skills are joined together, the result is a far clearer understanding, and subtitles provide that essential bridge. As the story unfolds, every word spoken is supported on screen. This means that when learners hear a phrase like swirling tide or mesmerizing horizon, they can also see the spelling, notice the rhythm, and connect the meaning instantly. It allows them to catch words they might otherwise miss, and it reinforces memory by linking sound with text. In this way, learners are not simply listening passively. They are actively engaging with the language on multiple levels. Another advantage of subtitles is that they help learners recognize the natural pace and intonation of British English. Sometimes spoken words blur together, especially in connected speech, but reading them at the same time reveals their structure. A phrase that might sound unfamiliar to the ear suddenly becomes clear when it appears on the screen. Over time, this practice builds confidence because learners realize that they can keep up with more advanced English without needing every word to be slowed down. It is also important to see how subtitles encourage independent learning. Learners can pause, repeat sections, and focus on specific words or sentences that interest them. They can note how a certain expression is used in context and practice saying it aloud themselves. This flexibility gives learners control over their progress, turning a simple story into an interactive language lesson. Most importantly, listening and reading together make the experience more immersive. Instead of feeling lost or frustrated, learners feel supported, and this allows them to enjoy the story itself while still improving their English. They are not forced to choose between understanding and learning. They can have both at the same time. Through subtitles, listening and reading become a unified practice, one that transforms a simple story into a powerful tool for mastering the language. There is something timeless about listening to a story, and that is why the Storytime format works so well for language learning. Stories are not just collections of words and sentences. They are journeys that invite us to imagine, to feel, and to connect. When language is presented in the form of a story, it becomes much more than a grammar exercise or a vocabulary list. It becomes alive. Learners are not only practicing English, they are experiencing it, and that makes the learning process engaging and memorable. The rhythm of storytelling naturally draws the listener in. Instead of being confronted with rules or explanations, learners follow characters, emotions, and events. This sense of curiosity encourages them to keep listening, and as they do, the language flows into their minds almost effortlessly. A mysterious figure in the water, the sound of waves crashing against the shore, the suspense of not knowing what will happen next. These details keep attention fixed, and with that attention comes greater retention of new words and expressions. Another strength of the Storytime format is the way it mirrors real-life communication. In everyday life, we rarely speak in isolated sentences. We tell stories, we explain, we describe. By listening to English in story form, learners practice understanding language in the way it is naturally used. They hear how ideas connect, how moods shift, how descriptions paint a scene. This exposure is invaluable for building fluency and for learning how to communicate in a way that feels authentic and expressive. Stories also leave emotional imprints, and that emotional connection helps the language stay in memory. When learners feel suspense, curiosity, or wonder while listening, they are far more likely to remember the phrases linked to those emotions. Words and expressions are no longer just items to study. They are tied to experiences and images in the mind. This makes recall easier and speaking more natural because the language has been learned in a meaningful context. The Storytime format turns learning into an experience rather than a task. It transforms lessons into moments of imagination where English is not only studied but lived. And it is in living the language through stories that true progress takes root. Thank you for joining this journey into mystery, language, and imagination. We explored how a single encounter on the coast can spark suspense, and how themes of nature, water, and the unknown add depth to every moment. The woman in the water reminded us of the balance between fear and fascination, while the rich British English vocabulary strengthened your skills at the B2, C1 level. Subtitles supported your listening and reading practice, making understanding clear, and the Storytime format brought learning to life in a memorable way. Keep practicing, keep imagining, and let English carry you to new horizons.